So, if we haven't met, I'm Jennifer Elliott and welcome to Yin. So, this will be a 60-minute Yin class, and tonight we're working on hamstrings and hip flexors. So, sort of the front side and the back side. So, we'll get started. I'm starting on two blocks. Now, this could totally be a bolster or even a blanket. The pose is reclined butterfly. So, what I'm going to do is put the two blocks just next to each other, lie on my back, and put my feet on the blocks. Now, this could totally be a bolster under the feet. You could just do a regular butterfly with props under the knees. So again, think a little less about specifics and more about sort of target areas. So we're targeting the inner thighs. How you get there is up to you. It doesn't have to look like mine, especially if you have any lower back sensitivities. I practiced earlier today, so I can already feel it a little in my back. So in my personal practice, I might even consider something under the knees. So I use a timer on my phone. It has a nice bell sound, so I'll set a timer for our poses. That just allows us to completely relax. All right, so this first pose will be 4 minutes. So just find your pose, whatever it is for you. If it's this version of reclined butterfly or your own. The arms drape out to the sides, palms open. Let the eyes close, and the eyes themselves just melt down into their sockets. Let the jaw unhinge, and feel the tongue go slack in the mouth. And even though the eyes are closed, let the inward gaze start to move down. So move the inward gaze away from the forehead and looking up, and maybe turn that internal gaze downward, grounding down. Start to notice the quality of your breath. And as you're observing your breath, we want our breath to move in all directions, all dimensions. And so you might notice at first the sternum rising, the collarbones widening. But can you also notice the lower ribs moving, the back ribs, even the back body as it presses into the mat? We forget how much of our lungs fill the back ribs, the side ribs. And so really just fill your whole thoracic cavity with breath, not forced. Just allow that breath to explore the entire torso. And as we're settling in, we've been here just a little while, so about halfway through this pose. So decide if you're feeling any tension in your knees or your lower back. You may need to make changes like adding props to go higher or coming out of the pose altogether. But if this is something that's okay for your knees and back, then just commit to stillness, not so much that you're holding it, but more allowing the body to melt into this pose. Gravity takes over. And use the breath to animate the body. The body has this illusion of being still. If we're really paying attention, the breath is moving the body, there's the heartbeat, the blood moving through the body, the lymph. You want to get more into energy. We've got meridians, nadis, that prana moving through. Even your thoughts create a rhythm. So tap into the rhythm of your breath and thoughts. And let that prana seek out new areas of the body. And sometimes you may feel like you want to jump out of your skin, or it's challenging to stay in the pose, not because of the pose, but you're just finding that you're fidgeting, either body or mind. And that's okay. Go with it. Either let that fidget go out, let it happen as it needs to, or it may be a signal that you need to back off for a moment and re-enter when you're ready. Okay. So go ahead and take your hands to your outer knees. Physically guide your knees together. Take a moment here. Your feet are just rooted. I'm going to have my feet on my blocks just because they were already there. So if you were on a prop, feel free to use it. And then we take a moment to rebound to see how the body accepted that new movement. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. Thread the needle. Now you're welcome to stay here, especially if your foot is on a prop. This might be a really nice option for you. Or reach for the left thigh, pull it in, and find your thread the needle. So I'll use my timer again. We're going to do about 3 minutes for most of our poses today. And if thread the needle is not for you, or if you want to explore it, you can always cradle that top leg and hold onto it. The foot with the left hand, lower the left leg, kind of almost like a reverse pigeon. Hopefully we'll get to pigeon later today, so if you don't feel like doing it now, we will get to that later if that's another alternative pose that you'd like. Otherwise, find this version of thread the needle. And then each pose is a new opportunity to check back in. And so start as we did in the last pose, soften the eyes, relax the jaw, reconnect with the breath. But this time, let's take the breath into some nice ratios, even ratio. So the inhale and the exhale will be the same length. Let's take an inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. Exhale out the nose, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 4. Inhale 4. Exhale 4. And then continue on your own, just keeping that breath even. Got about a minute left here. You can always straighten the left leg or make any other changes you need. In a few moments, when the timer goes off, we're going to try to keep these legs in the figure 4. We're just going to add a little bit of a twist to it. So try to keep the legs as they are. And release the arms down to the floor. And then take this whole leg unit and slowly drop it to the left. So we're combining our thread the needle and a twist. Now, if this is not for you, just take a regular twist. Any version is fine. But I'm going to use my left hand to hold the right foot. I like to slide it a little higher up that left thigh. If it doesn't go onto the floor, you can put it on that bottom leg. Shimmy the left hip and shoulder out so that you feel a bit more comfortable. And you can hold the leg as you are, as I am here, or you can even press that top thigh open. So this will get sort of into a little bit of the top hip flexor. If it's too much or just not where you want to be right away, a traditional twist is fine. We're going to stick with that 3 minutes. And if the right arm is free, it can either be down by your sides, it can reach right behind you. Reaching behind kind of gets a little longer through the right side body, but it depends on how your shoulder's feeling if you feel like moving that back. So again, close the eyes, check back in. And if that Samavritti, that even ratio breathing is working well for you, do it again. Now 4 and 4, maybe your number, maybe you're increasing it to 5 or 6 rounds. But you can visualize, I like to visualize that I'm a swimmer swimming laps. And so we keep a nice even pace, a nice cadence until we get to the end of our lap. And as we get to the end of our lap, that's like the pause at the top of the inhale. And then we slowly turn. There's that pause. And then as we exhale, we slowly swim to the other side at a nice even pace and cadence. We pause when we get to the other side of the pool. And then inhale again on our way back. So maybe just visualize that. And breath turning the corner with each cycle. Halfway through this pose. I think for myself, I can find that fidgeting and feel that I lost my breath fairly easily. We use the breath to sort of help land the attention. It's nice to anchor the breath into something that we can really focus on. And so if you lose your breath, no big deal. And slowly come back to center. Set your feet down, either on the floor, on your pops, whatever was working for you. Take a moment to rebound. We just sort of let the body settle, accept those changes we've made. And then left ankle over the right knee, thread the needle. So again, exactly as you are. You can stay, my foot still resting on my prop, or you can reach for that thigh. You can always, I'm near the wall, so I'm going to demo that as well. If you prefer using a wall for your thread the needle, that's fine. You can put your right foot on the wall or even on a couch or something in your room if that works a little bit better for you. So we're back to the 3 minutes. Some of you may have made other changes, done different poses, so just stay consistent if you've done something else. Turn just because I know that works better for me. Check back in once again. So already I can tell my jaw has started to tighten. And this is just something that happens naturally. These are sort of our subconscious defense mechanisms, right? We feel a little bit of tension, we start to tense our jaw. These are things that happen even if we feel relaxed. And so that's why each time we get back to a pose, we just kind of go down our list again. Close the eyes, relax the jaw, connect with the breath. Until eventually that becomes our subconscious or new normal. We sort of find those things on our own. Maybe you're using that Samavritti breath. Or you can just start to be mindfulness, paying attention on purpose. Where do you feel this in the body? My first location was the jaw. Now I feel it in my left hip. Maybe follow your sensation around. Just be the observer. Halfway through this pose,
All right. 5 breaths, about 30 seconds left. I'm going to use the timer so you know I haven't forgotten about you. It's sort of the subjective time, right? It's not subjective. We know it's the same. It's interesting. I generally tend to just check it on my own at some similar times, usually the halfway mark, the 30-second mark. Let's keep our legs as they are, but drop them to the right. And so the point of that, of sort of knowing that I check the timer at the same time a lot, is you're really starting to tap into your intuition. So we're dropping again, the legs to the right. Let that top knee open, maybe press it away. Move the right hip and shoulder. Some of you left arm reaching behind. And if this wasn't what you took on side one, it maybe had been more of a traditional twist. So with that intuition, trust that you have the right answers. I'm taking a course right now, one of the ancient texts that I'm just not really studied all that much. I apologize if I butcher the name, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And I really like what my teacher was saying is that the whole point of the practice from the viewpoint of that book is to create stillness. And through the stillness, the answers come. And so it's all about learning to be still. In order to do that, we first have to move our body and sort of build this container with the breath. And then we can start to train the mind with the body to be still. And so the more still you become, what rises up for you are your own intuitions, your own insights. About halfway through. And we are creating stress, and I'm using that properly, stress in the joints versus a stretch. There is a stretch, but we're stressing the joints in a healthy way. But we all live in a different body, so as we get still, we get quiet, we listen within. Even something that seems simple, when you add that time, that stress, that gravity and weight, that may or may not be appropriate for you. So remember that these poses can change anytime. And you can always back out and rest. All right, so slowly unwind. Take a moment, find your center again. Just pause. Maybe take the feet wide and let the knees fall into one another. You can place a hand over the heart or the belly. And just take a moment and let your body receive those benefits. And with the feet as wide as the mat, the knees falling in, just start to gently winch away with the knees side to side. So as you rock the knees side to side, just gently unwinding an experience you might have had in the lower back. Now I'm going to use a block. This could be a bolster or whatever you have available. So bring your feet to center, peel your hips up slowly, and slide the prop under your pelvis, whatever height that you'd like. Now take a moment to get comfortable there. Pull the knees in and raise the feet to the ceiling. We'll sort of pause here with legs in the air before we fully move on into getting deeper into the hip flexors. I find for me personally with something like thread the needle, my body's a lot happier to start working the front body like the hip flexors once I've stretched my hamstrings and my lower back. So feet to the ceiling for a moment. The next pose, we're going to change the timing, so I'm just going to get that set for us. Begin to bend your knees. Now hold on to the right knee and put your left foot on the floor. Now I went a little higher than I normally go on my prop. I'm on sort of the medium height. For me, I usually go low height just because my low back needs a little TLC. So decide for you, is that height okay? Keep either the left foot on the floor like it's a bridge or straighten it out. Now we are working that left hip flexor, so the straighter and the higher that prop is, then the more we're going to get into it. You can even float that left leg off the ground. So I'll start the timer and then I'll give you some options because this may not be for everyone. Okay, so we're here 2 minutes, not long. If pulling one knee in and the other leg bent or straight is not for you, this bothers the lower back, then what you can do is you can find your way onto your belly. And then you can pull that left leg in and press your pelvis down into the ground. This is a nice alternative if that ekapada, the one-legged bridge, is not for you. And then if you are doing this sort of bridge version, explore for you. You can have both hands on top of the shin. You can reach the left arm behind you to get deeper into the abdomen and hip flexor. Or again, you can float the left leg up. Most of us are sitting a lot these days at our desk, our couch. And so the two areas that get shortened are these hip flexors and hamstrings. And they start to pull on the pelvis, they pull on the ribs, the diaphragm, they even affect the lungs. So as you breathe here, you might feel how the lungs, the diaphragm are connected. They take a big breath. I can feel that stretching, that sort of almost like pulling of taffy right across the navel. They're slightly to the side. Okay, so set your foot down, both feet down, and then switch to the other leg. Pull the left leg in. You can stay in the sort of half bridge or straighten the leg out. Again, it's really relative to you. It's not particular pose, it's target area. Let's target the front of that right thigh. Same 2 minutes. You maybe reach the right arm back. So as you find your stillness, what rises up for you? If it's sensation, notice the sensation. Does it feel like it's the general area? Is it very specific? Does the sensation have a texture? Is there a color? What about a memory? Do you notice an emotion? And how does all of this affect or change your breath? Just got about 5 breaths. Okay. So gently set both of your feet onto the floor and be real honest with yourself. See how you're feeling. We're going to do one last pose, if this is okay for you, one last in this series. So you can either stay in this bridge with your knees bent, you're supported on a prop. Some of you might straighten both legs and let the toes face up. Arms can be down, or you can reach back. We're going to stay with this 2 minutes one last time. If your low back is not feeling great, then remove your prop, let your hips lower to the ground, and just rest with your hips on the ground. Or you can also be in Sphinx, just lying on your belly on your forearms. So take this bridge, whichever version you want, or Sphinx, which is just lying on your belly with your elbows in front of you. And if you're someone who pushes through pain or discomfort, just ask yourself, where is that? If that pain or discomfort is in the lower back, then that's not appropriate. We want to back off slowly. If the discomfort is across the belly and there's no herniations or reasons that we should be careful there, then that's usually fine. Sometimes it's not that we are even uncomfortable, it's that we think we're going to be uncomfortable. So we brace, we sort of hold, prepare. Five breaths left. Now I went too fast. I went too deep. So I bent my knees, and this is also sort of pulling back slowly. And because I know I went too fast, I'm even going to lower my prop down just a little bit so that I'm not coming out of this pose super fast when the timer goes on. Okay, so if your legs are straight, rebend. If you have layers of your prop, lower them down slowly, and then eventually remove. But important, lower your hips to the floor, leave them on the floor. It's going to be super tempting to pull your knees in, but leave your hips where they are. Place your hands at your lower belly. You can close the eyes if you'd like. Take an inhale into the lower belly. Let the lower belly lift into your hands. And then exhale, draw your navel down to the spine. Just a tiny pelvic tilt. Inhale, belly rises into the hands. Exhale, drive your navel down until you feel your tailbone curl up just about a centimeter, not very high. Inhale. And exhale, last one. Okay. Windshield wiper your knees gently again. And then you can roll to your side and press yourself up to seated.
All right, so I'm going to use a blanket. I like a blanket for my knee, and I'm going to have my blocks available. So we're going to do a lunge. We're going to do a low lunge. We're getting into those hip flexors again. So let me show you first, and then I will give options because it's always nice to have something else for the knees. So what I'm doing is I'm just coming into a low lunge, like Anjaneyasana, stacking knee over ankle. I have my back knee padded. I'm going to inch the knee back, but instead of shifting forward, I want to try to back out. Now, for me personally, this won't work for everyone, but for me personally, I actually can sit on my block, sit bone on block, and then I can inch my back knee back a little bit, and I can just sit up tall. So this way I can kind of be in the hip flexor stretch, but I'm not trying to grip and hold on. I can kind of just relax into the pose. Okay, so this is the option. If this is not for you, lie on your belly, and same thing I showed earlier, you can pull that leg in. So just whatever is going to be best on your knee. We're going back to 3 minutes. Get that started. And the target is the hip flexor. So again, if you can, sit as tall as you can. If being hands on the ground is enough and you're still getting into that hip flexor, that's fine. Just see how we can target that same area that we did when we were on our back. And everyone's a little bit different. If you have the prop that's at the right height and you can sort of relax your hands, they can rest on your thigh, on your block, or sometimes I'll reach them up and even just sort of continue to lengthen. So explore, give yourself a couple of breaths, and then commit to stillness, whatever you've decided is your best pose. If you're not going to topple over, maybe close the eyes. We have just a little over a minute left. So sometimes we might feel bored in a pose. You feel like, okay, I'm ready to move on, or what am I supposed to be feeling? Boredom means that we're just not paying attention. There's always something we can find. And sometimes those smaller movements, those smaller improvements are really what we're looking for. It's not this big visual thing that we can see or even feel sometimes. Just your last couple of breaths. Okay. When you move, go slow. Now what I'm doing, target is the hamstrings, but what I'm doing is I'm just picking up the front toes and I have my hands on my block. So you can stay exactly as you are. This actually feels fine for me at the moment. In my practice earlier, I dropped all the way down to the forearms. So whatever works for you, but we're getting into the hamstrings. We're going to be there those 3 minutes. Actually, I lied, 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead. They say as we get older, we're supposed to constantly be learning something new. I find it's like every day now I'm learning 2, 3, 4 new things, keeping that brain active. So again, if this isn't for you, the target is hamstrings, whatever that means for you. If folding over is not for your lower back, you can do this on your back with a strap, just sort of holding your leg and stretching hamstrings. We're just on our last 5. Okay, let's go ahead and shift out and then switch to the other side. So most of you is left leg forward, moving the right knee back, so getting into your lunge. Now, if you're folding forward, hands on the ground, that's either all that you've got or what's comfortable for you, that's fine. You can still get into that thigh. If it was available for you to sit upright on something, it just helps you really settle into it, right? Gravity can set in when we're not fidgeting. Going back to the 3 minutes so it's even with the first side. Ooh. Any other adjustments you need here? As we get into these more intense postures, they require a little bit more sort of mindfulness to stay present, to not be fidgety. And so close the eyes if you can without sort of toppling yourself over, if you're okay with your balance. And locate the sensation. Where is it exactly? Sort of find it in your mind's eye. And then assign it a color. What color is coming to your mind? Don't second guess it. It might change colors, but just allow it to start to create a shape. Is that shape soft? Or does it have rough edges? Is it sticky? Is it viscous? And then begin to imagine that whatever that sensation is, that it does become soft. Whatever color you see begins to run, it begins to release, to melt. And with that, the body gives in to gravity just a bit more. All right, last 5 breaths. Okay. So gently release. We're going to move into the hamstrings again. Shift back. And then as you move into the hamstrings, I'll reset the timer for 2 minutes. Settle into your pose and don't have an expectation. You can be higher or lower than the first side. It doesn't really matter. When we get into the philosophy of yoga, the Yoga Sutras, we sort of learn that we create a lot of our own suffering just by expectation. We expect things are a certain way, we have a certain idea, and that idea or expectation might not even be true, accurate, maybe a misperception. And so then we've sort of based our expectations on something false. And so your thought might be, oh, I'm supposed to get down to my leg. I'm supposed to forward fold as much as I can. And then if you don't make it, you've created suffering or you feel somehow you haven't achieved what you're here to do. But if you reframe it and you say, oh, I'm just here to stretch to target this hamstring. And for me, I feel it here, so I'm in the perfect place for me. So you sort of reframe it. And if you eventually end up by the leg, great. But if not, just as great. And here, 5 more breaths. Okay. Slowly back off. Give yourself a moment just to rest. You can sit on your feet. I'm going to show you where we're going. Now, we're going to use the wall for this. I'm going to go back to the 2 minutes. I recently had a foot injury. This actually was working okay for me. A lot of us have knee stuff, so this may not even be your pose. So our target is the front thigh. If you're over the front thigh, do something else. You can do like a wide butterfly. But we're going to do King Arthur to sort of seal out our practice of moving through the front hips. So what I'm doing is I put a blanket on the floor. I'm putting my foot up the wall, and then I'm bringing my other leg out. So I'm sort of using this. Now I know a wall is not available for everybody. So you might, pardon me, you might find a way to even be in a lunge and reach for the ankle or anything that gets the front thigh. So some of you I know, I'm gonna start the timer while I'm talking. Some of you might like a half saddle, half reclined hero. I'll kind of quickly demo that if that's not something you know. Well, maybe I won't demo it. This is the foot. But let's imagine that I went back into this pose. Or you can windshield wiper on your back and do the same thing. So these are all options. It's also a really great time to just rest. If you're like me, my foot is not happy at the wall, so I've got a nice little towel that sometimes I use as well. In a perfect world, all these poses might be a good 5 minutes. I think we're happy with 2 minutes on this one, right? My shin is up the wall, foot is on the wall. We're about halfway through, so if it's not this pose, just get into the front of your thigh. If you're at the wall, hands can be on the props, on your thigh, or you can be all the way have about 25 more seconds, but I want to talk about coming out of this pose before we have to. So we don't want our foot and shin to slide one way or the other. That's going to torque the knee. So when we come out of this pose, if you're at the wall, you're going to lean forward, tuck the toes under on the wall, and come straight out. So you'll lean forward, tuck the toes under on the wall, push right into it, and come out. So that way you don't torque the knee. All right, let's move to the other side, whatever version of this pose you're taking. Maybe you have your little handy towel or washcloth that goes in between your foot and the wall. Okay, we're back to our 2 minutes. Normally this is a super intense pose for me. This side's a little more intense than the other one. But because we targeted this part sort of all practice, this is a little less intense than it normally is for me. So you might be checking into your breath. How does your breath tell you about your experience? All right, we can do it. Just a few more seconds. Remember the knee. Be real mindful here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to, we have 2 poses left. I'm not going to spend as much time as I want in this last one just because I want to make sure to give you a decent shavasana. So we're going to take pigeon pose or anything that gets into your hamstrings, and then we'll end with a nice final stretch with the strap. So I'm going to take my right leg in front of me. This could be thread the needle. This could be deer pose. Deer pose is just sort of pulling that back leg up. I think we did this last Friday if you were with me. So take pigeon or deer, or if none of those sound great, then take your own options of poses. We're just going to stay here at the 2 minutes. I'd like to be longer. But again, this class time is shorter, so change with the times, right? And I'll give you about a halfway through. If you feel like reaching for that back ankle, I'll give you that option. We're halfway through this posture. You might stay exactly as you are, but we've done the work. So if you feel like lifting up, either just lifting and stretching tall or reaching for the back ankle, those are options. But again, they're just options. You can stay where you were. Or you can work on a bind. About 5 breaths for 30 seconds. It's not my practice, or at least not today. But some of you might even take this into like splits, like forward splits, Hanumanasana. Okay, now as you back out of the pose, do something for you. I'm going to go to down dog just because that feels really nice for me right now to get both legs straight. You might just sit on your feet or take a child's pose. Just take a moment. And then when you're ready, slide the left leg forward or take that second side for you. And again, we're just here 2 minutes. I'll give you a halfway point in between. It's not important, or at least it's my personal opinion, that it's not important to get that front shin parallel to the front of the mat. A lot of people who try to work on that, they might not have that range of motion in the hip and they just twerk the knee. So again, do what you can, but don't force anything. If the hip's not ready, no reason to push the knee, create that torque on the knee. We're halfway through. So if you wanted to do that sitting tall, you can just sit straight forward, or you can reach for the back thigh. More breaths. Okay, slowly back out. Take your rebound. Mine was down dog. Yours might have been child's pose. And then make your way to your back. We're going to grab a strap, slide it over the right foot. Now we won't do this long so we can have a nice shavasana, but it's nice to release hamstrings and lower back from our practice. So I'm just lying on my back. I've got the strap over my right foot. We've kind of done the hamstring work, so I'm not too worried that we're not going to be here as long as I'd like. But we're going to put the straps into the left hand, cross the leg over, and I actually have a wall here, which is nice. You might have a couch or even a friend that's in your room that you can set your foot on. That's always nice. And then take the right arm out. So just enjoy a nice twist, nice straight-legged twist. You might press that right thigh down. Couple breaths. You won't be here the full time. It's maybe 5 or 6 breaths. Bring your leg up. And put your left foot into the strap. Lower your right leg down.
And when you're ready, straps into the right hand, cross it over. Nice pop. Take your final stretch here. Bring your leg up. Pull your knees into your chest. Now, we're going to move into Shavasana. Some of you may just have knees into the chest or even happy baby for Shavasana. I'm going to rock up and do a seated forward fold because I want to set myself up for Shavasana up here. So I'm going to sit up, just take a nice gentle forward fold. Nothing intense, we're not here long. So, happy baby, forward fold, whatever you'd like. And then leave your heart come up if you're in a seated forward fold and start to set yourself up for Shavasana. If you have any low back sensitivity or just feels really nice, you might do Shavasana with legs up the wall. That's always really nice. I'm going to use my props, my 2 blocks and my blanket and just set that up like it's a bolster. So I'm going to set my blocks on top of or next to one another, blanket on top of that. And I'm going to use that as my sort of my bolster. Okay, so I'll set the timer one last time, and that way we can just fully enjoy Shavasana. I like not sort of having to look at the clock and worry about what time it is. Okay, so I'm just going to go 1 minute over. We're going to have a 3-minute Shavasana. The timer is going, so we don't have to worry about it. Close the eyes. Check back in. And just allow your body to Shavasana.
to fingers and toes. And inhale to bring the arms overhead, maybe yawn. Bend the knees, roll to your right side. And use the strength of your arms to press upright. Eyes remain closed or partially closed. Hands to your heart in gratitude for all the work your body has done. Lift your chest, bow your head. Namaste.